revised drainage plan, particularly in light of the fact that my clients are going to be the most affected neighbors, abutters of that drainage plan, significantly impacted by the sound generated by Thayer, and the fact that they have expended their own money to undertake a peer review of both these very important aspects. I just kindly ask the board to keep the public hearing open, to give us an opportunity to submit that information, and to give Thayer an opportunity to supplement the information to this board as to how it plans to satisfy the subparagraph of the bylaw concerning noise.
So before I ask the board to discuss the question of the continuance, because as you stated, we had to open the public hearing before we could, we can't continue it without having opened the public hearing. Mr. Giuliano, when would, so our next meeting is obviously in 2 weeks, our next scheduled meeting. Would he have his report available in 1 week so that the board would have a chance to review it?
I believe that would be the case. I think that when we're in here on the 27th, the schedule, the contemplated schedule was for, if the site plan had been provided to him on the 27th or you know, day before, day after, that it would take him 2 weeks to do the turnaround peer review. I think that probably remains true. What has occurred, you know, as I said, is that there was a misunderstanding. Right. There was a week delay in him getting that report. So that's what necessitated would necessitate the additional week. But
as part of your request, you would commit to having that done and submitted to the board?
Yes, I think that's reasonable. Yes.
Okay.
That's reasonable.
So to the board members, so.
Sorry, can you hear from the applicant before we go to the board?
Yeah, I just want to clarify what you're being asked. So just to make clear, you're the, this set of abutters, Mr. Joe Henning and Mr. Rowe, have asked that we continue the meeting to allow for the review of the report that we received today and the receipt of the drainage report that they're having prepared next Thursday. I agree, Brian, we should hear from the applicant before we begin our discussion. So Mr. Dunn, if you'll step back.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Josh, Maggie, Ned, do you have a response on that request and anything else the board should know before we discuss whether or not to continue the meeting? Or to continue the hearing, rather?
Listen to Ned first, see what he says.
I would leave it to the board's discretion.
My opinion, I think the hearing could be closed, and that's something we could address as far as I'm concerned. We have the town engineer's approval. That's a huge component here. We have our engineer. We have 2 certified people with their licenses on the line saying that this system is adequate. I just listened to a woman from the Eggleston group, and I heard what she had to say. And Adris, and at the end of the day, Alex asked some questions, and that satisfies his needs with regard to that project. And what we're proposing, yes, Alex, it will have a beneficial effect. Our drainage.
Okay, great. Just to clarify, thank you all 3 very much. You can step back now.
And it will be a vast improvement over existing conditions.
Okay.
And that seemed to be a lot of the criteria that you were basing your Eggleston decision on.
Okay, great, thank you. Just to clarify for board members that the engineering department was asked to review the connection to the town and what impact from what theirs proposed, specifically the connection to the town and not the whole drainage plan. So board members, what would you like to do?
I have a quick question
Yes.
as far as the plan being sent to the applicant. Is the plan available through the town hall office, and is it a requirement for the applicant to send it to the abutter to review? Just from the standpoint of we're hearing that the applicant wasn't supplied, but
You mean the drainage plan?
The drainage plan.
So, I believe it's when did you guys receive the updated drainage plan?
So we received a drainage plan that on August 24th in advance of the site walk.
Right.
That is not I mean, in my opinion, substantially different from the one that's posted right now.
Okay,
And Mr. Giuliano got that in anticipation of the site walk.
okay.
There were updates made to that plan and to that stormwater report that he received that came into our office at the end of August, beginning of September, that he got on September 2nd.
No changes in the stormwater report, just in they put the soil log on the plan,
Okay,
on the first page.
all right. But to the actual component structures, there was
Everything
no
else was the
change
same.
from the one that we all had at the site walk, including Mr. Giuliano? Okay. And the second thing is the applicant is required to submit documents to the board. I am not aware of any requirement that they submit anything to abutters, specific abutters outside of the board. I mean, the whole purpose, as we've discussed before in this and other public hearings, the purpose of a public hearing is for the board to gather information on the application, both in its questions to the applicant on their application and in hearing from members of the public about their concerns. Mr. Dunn, I see you, but I'm not yet recognizing you. In answer to applicants or abutters and other Milton residents who have concerns about the application. So the purpose of the public hearing is for the board to gather the information that it needs in order to make its decision. Now, part of the public hearing is, of course, hearing the questions and answers from questions and concerns of members of the public and answering those as best we can. There is no requirement that that abutters need to have their own peer review studies done. That's their choice. But the information comes to the board. So, Mr. Dunn, you had a comment you wish to make?
Yeah, I understand what the requirements are legally
Right.
with regards to providing interested parties with information. It was my understanding that Mr. Giuliano's participation was requested by this board, and so providing him with all the information that is necessary for him to undertake a peer review, particularly in light of the bylaw requirements and its effect on neighbors. I think that there was an understanding, or at least an implied understanding, that this board would allow him to provide his input, given the fact that he was asked to participate by this board. So, it's difficult and cost prohibitive, as Thayer has discussed with regards to the site plan, to give a final input on something that's a moving target. And the drainage plan was a moving target until September 2nd, when the full information was provided to Mr. Giuliano, and he was able to begin his analysis once he received all the information. So, he was asked to participate. He got all the information he needed to conduct his analysis on September 2nd. There was a contemplation that he would be given 2 weeks to undertake his analysis. And I think this is, as a matter of fairness, I think he should be afforded an opportunity to submit his report, flesh out what needs to be talked about in a public hearing, and then have an opportunity to close it. I mean, I know that everybody's starting to gloss over here, both with regards to tonight and in this hearing process at large. I get that. That's not lost on me. But these are two very important points that we are on. We're on the goal line here with regards to wrapping this thing up, and in order to complete a full vetting of what is being proposed. I think it warrants continuance to meaningfully address these two topics, and I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you.
Okay, I will say, I've got Alex, Cheryl, and then Ned, but I will say that I think gloss over is a little unfair, especially once you see what we've been working on in between meetings. So, Alex, you first.
It's 10:30. I don't think that whether we close the hearing or don't, if we close the hearing, I don't think that we're going to deliberate very much, if at all. And it seems to me that we probably, as a matter of just common sense, wouldn't start to deliberate until next meeting. So I don't see that there's any downside to granting the continuance and seeing what Mr. Giuliano may have to say.
Cheryl?
Just point of record, I guess. Did this board actually ask for Mr. Giuliano to do this? I don't recall that.
I was going to let Alex address that because I thought that's actually what he was going to say. No,
I
there,
didn't.
so there was no formal request. I mean, the applicant brought for the applicant. It is late, isn't it? The abutter had brought forward the fact that they had a drainage expert. I think we had talked about him coming to the site review, but there was no formal request from the board that they hire a drainage expert.
I just want to make that clear.
That's not my memory.
And
so.
my recollection also was that the abutters made a request that Mr. Giuliano be allowed to attend the site walk. It wasn't that we invited him to attend the site walk. I just want to have the record be clear.
Right, there's no. Ned, you had a comment you wish to make?
Yeah, as Cheryl just mentioned,
Yeah,
the town's consistent with looking for John Thompson to
right.
review and report. I think the board was happy to allow Roland Johanning's engineer to participate in the site walk and to provide comment, but he was never asked by this board specifically to provide to serve as a peer review on behalf of the board.
Right. Yes, we did not make a formal request for a peer review consultant. That is,
I don't think, I think we well take his information and, you know, input it into the conversation, but I don't think there's much public input to be gained after his comments.
okay.
As we've seen tonight, it took one engineer to speak to the other engineer, and maybe we can sift through some of the information, but
Okay.
I don't think there's too many people out in the public that are going to comment to his calculations or
So are you with Alex?
redress of the other engineers. I just don't think it's necessary to continue the public hearing.
So you would close the public hearing,
Just-
but allow the, I just want to clarify, but allow these reports to
Sure,
come in and be
absolutely.
discussed by the
Absolutely.
applicant. So that gets tricky. I can already see Alex moving. That gets tricky because if you have evidence coming in that's being, information that's being submitted to the board, you've already closed the public hearing, but then you're going to allow discussion of it. That is no longer a particularly clean process. So if the board wants to hear this information, then we should probably keep the public hearing open in order to receive it. So, Cheryl.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the applicant if they wanted the opportunity to respond to the Kavanaugh-Tachi report in a, no?
Please come forward. Please come forward, Maggie.
They just got it at 5 o'clock.
Well, that's
We
what I
just
mean.
got
Do
it
they
at
want to
5,
keep
so
it
We
open?
haven't been able to review it, but that report, he referenced the 10-foot fence. The 10-foot fence was on our original proposal, which did not have any sound attenuation on it. So since that report came out, we have listened to our abutters, and they have requested the sound attenuation to be put on a fence. So we are, our noise control plan for the Johanning Row property is the sound attenuation on it. So I think we've satisfied that requirement. Also, at the last meeting, I do recall you saying that that if any reports were to come in after the public meeting was closed, you could then ask questions of either the applicant or not. So I felt like after the last meeting that the goal was to close this meeting, and we have the review from town engineer, and I just don't think it's fair to keep on extending it week after week after week. We're coming up on a year, and at some point, deliberations has to happen.
Just thought of my
Yep, you can step back, Maggie, thank you. Yes.
I thought we just received a written report from the Butters engineer. I mean, if you're saying that we may need him to verbally explain something to us or something, then that's necessary to keep the public hearing open, then that's just a logistics that has to be, but if we can, I mean, we certainly, like, we take the town engineer's report and we just take his report.
So that becomes the question to all of you, and Alex, I saw your hand, is if you want to simply receive the report and take it under consideration, we could probably close the public hearing. If you want the opportunity to discuss the report, or if you want to allow the applicant the opportunity to discuss the report, then we should probably keep it open. Alex?
That's my point. I mean, if this guy is an engineer, and if he is an engineer, I mean, the stuff he produces, if it's telling or material, it may be that the applicant will want to address it with their engineer, and you can't do that if you close the hearing.
Yes.
It just doesn't, I mean, I think that we should block out some time next meeting so that we can give Thayer more time than we gave them tonight. But it just doesn't seem to me to make any difference at all whether, I mean, it does make a difference, but it doesn't make any, it doesn't do them any harm to continue the public hearing until next time. Receive the report, let them respond to it, and close the hearing and go on with it.
Tim, what else do, other than the zoning articles for the May 2016 town meeting, what do we have for our next meeting? Anything?
There is a informational presentation on 591 Blue Hill Avenue,
Okay,
and
that was going to be 15 minutes?
if that,
Okay.
and
So-
that's all
so-
we've got so far.
If the board decides to continue it, we could continue it to 7:15 and have this be the first item on the agenda? Okay. And then let's not have anything else other than zoning on the agenda for that night.
We will receive this engineer's report at least a week ahead of time.
They have committed to that, yes. They have committed to that. I mean, I think one thing that we could consider is exactly what I think you both said, which is keep the public hearing open for the purpose of receiving and responding to the report only, then close the public hearing and begin the deliberations. And as part of that, you should all know that in your packet tonight was the document that Tim and I have been passing back and forth for a number of weeks, which is not, I want to stress this, it is not a draft special permit. It is the attempt to come up with the order of conditions that if the board were to grant a special permit would be part of that. It is not complete. Hang on, it is not complete. You'll see that there are comments on the side and questions throughout, but it's our attempt to go through everything that we've received so far, the application, the supplementary materials, and put it in a format that would guide that initial deliberation. It should be somewhere in the stack that was on the table tonight.
Towards the bottom, Mike.
Yeah. So I would say that if
for
the
my
board
stack
wishes to
Fury.
continue for the purposes of,
That's yours.
of
I didn't, I mean, I don't know where.
I think it's probably at the very bottom of that. If the board were to continue for the purpose of, hold on, I'm trying to talk to the board members, so. Technically, the public comment part has stopped, so all of you with your hands raised, hold on. If the board were to continue for the purpose of receiving and responding to the report, allowing both sides, then I would say we would want to close it and begin with this as our guide to deliberation. Cheryl, your hand first.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about continuing for very specific purposes,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that my question to the applicant was, did they want to have opportunity to fully digest this Kavanaugh-Tati report and be able to address it as well?
I'm not
No.
sure that you got the answer to your question.
Right, so that's really, I just wanted to make sure, because if we're going to make it only specific to the drainage, then that would preclude discussion of this?
No, it wouldn't be, it
Oh,
would not
okay.
be specific, it would be
Okay.
specific to both
Yeah,
reports.
all right, great.
So,
I just wanted to be clear about that.
do you want to answer, I'm not sure you fully answered, do you want the opportunity to respond to these reports that are going to come with details on your,
I don't know.
I mean, you're not, if we close
I
the
don't know.
hearing tonight, you're still not going to get a decision tonight. There's,
No, and
That's not gonna
I
happen.
fully am aware of that,
okay.
but I do feel like there's always going to be something.
Mhm. Okay. Do you have anything to say on your,
Yeah, I would recommend that we continue to the 27th, specifically to address any comments that we may have with those two reports, and that would be it, and that the board then commit to close the hearing.
And would you
24th,
commit,
not 27th?
Whatever that date
would
is.
you
Whatever.
commit to deliberating as well that night?
Yes, that's what we would
In
do.
full?
No.
We can't commit to a vote.
No, I'm not saying a vote. I'm just saying, I just would like the respect of a full night. I've been requesting a full night for months now.
I understand that, but the board, as you can see, has a great deal of stuff on its
And I
plate.
understand that as a town meeting member, I appreciate all the work, and I've attended all the workshops.
You have.
So I fully appreciate that,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it just has to get wrapped up.
All right, understood. Mr. Dunn, you and your clients had some comments? Yes?
Just my one inquiry, I guess, it's just that the, Tim had indicated that just the body of the report had been circulated to members. I just wanted to make sure that I have a copy here of the full report.
We have it, but we have the full
the-
report by email. It's
Email.
just the body.
They
you
received it
printed for-
electronically. I just printed out the letter.
Okay, and the full report's going to be included in the file.
Yes.
Always included in the file.
Last
Yes.
statement, can we, when the engineer's report comes in, can we make sure the town engineer gets a copy and he can give us any input he can?
Yeah.
So moved.
All right, so I'm assuming, yes, Bill?
To get to the end of your agenda before he makes his motion.
Yeah, no, he can make a motion on continuing the hearing. So you're moving to continue the hearing for the purpose of receiving the drainage report and responding to both the drainage report and the sound report.
Exactly, I was
And then-
just trying to do it in a.
Okay. And whatever you do, don't move to adjourn because we have other stuff on the agenda.
No,
Okay.
I want amplified sound to be back on the, back
All right,
on
we
the-
have that and we have 7-Eleven. Any seconds?
Second.
All right, any discussion? So just so board members are aware, we are moving to continue this solely for the purpose of receiving the drainage report on Thursday, a week from today, and responding to the report received just before the meeting tonight and the drainage report. We will then close the public hearing and move to our deliberations using this draft order of conditions as our initial guide. Everybody's in agreement with that as far as, all right, do
Well,
I?
as an initial source.
Source, guide, source, however, yes. Anybody have any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? All right. One. Okay. This is continued to 7:15 on September 24th. We will schedule nothing else after it other than the zoning articles at the very end of this process. We will give it a full night. All right. Speaking of zoning, or in this case bylaw, amplified sound. So we just need to clarify whether we include that as one of the withdrawn articles. We had talked, I think Alex had made the proposal at a previous meeting that become a general bylaw and change to amplified sound. If you look at the language, it has amplified sound at the top and amplified music throughout, so that's an issue. General bylaw requires the Board of Selectmen to submit it. I do not know, because I haven't asked them, if they would be willing to submit it for this town meeting, given that it's no longer a planning board article and sort of out with the deal, but I am open to suggestions.
Is that really true?
Well, I don't know, I haven't asked them.
No, is it really true that no one can ask to do a general bylaw except the selectmen?
I don't know that that's true at all. Somebody else said
I
that.
don't know.
I thought it could be the
mean,
planning
that just-
board.
That
Kind
doesn't
of
sound
planning
right at all.
Yeah, so somebody had mentioned that at a previous meeting. I don't
think-
understand why
I
it can't be the
think-
planning board.
I think we should submit it.
Should we change music to sound?
And
And does that increase the
As a
scope?
quick point on that, the
Yeah.
resident that spoke earlier about sound had actually suggested a different word altogether.
Electronic
Electronic
device.
Electronic devices or something, and I just wonder if we should,
Amplified electronic devices, that wouldn't cover leaf blowers if that's an issue, and I think that's been an
I think
issue.
it should be amplified music, and if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly. The warrant committee has got to do the recommendation, you know, if it were amplified, I mean, that's the PA announcer at the football game.
The only question I have on that, and I do not know the answer because we haven't had a review from John Flynn yet. I'm not even sure who knows the answer, is would it actually have an effect on the institutions? I don't, because I think that's the purpose of submitting it, but I don't know, because lighting, we can't control that. I don't know if we can do
Well, I mean,
the,
you say we can't.
I've been
I
told
said-
legally that we
Well, I
can't,
think
so.
I was
But
going
you're
to
the
ask you
lawyer,
the name
so-
of the case. Would you send it to me?
Yeah, I will do, happy
You
to.
just mentioned leaf blowers. What's,
If you
Sound.
look back at Newton,
yeah?
Newton does not allow leaf blowers,
Sound.
Right.
Yeah, but why did you say
which is
it?
why that's.
Because Newton is
Because of the
what Mike
electronic
had
noise.
referred to.
Like
He's a member of the
noise.
warrant committee, and he brought it up at the warrant committee meeting that I
that
went to last week.
I'm asking the question about electronic devices. Is that what triggered you just saying leaf blowers?
Because it
certainly
wouldn't
music-
cover leaf
well, music's
blowers.
certainly not going to cover it.
No, I know that, but
Okay.
you had said about whether or not, about the resident
Yeah,
asking.
that's all I was asking about. But then you brought up leaf blowers, which I wasn't even thinking about. Now I was just trying to clarify why you said that.
Okay, so I said that because his initial request was that we consider a much broader ranging noise bylaw. And then he transferred it to so that's why I brought up the leaf blowers, because although amplified music doesn't cover it, electronic devices doesn't cover it, amplified sounds might, depending
I
on
don't
how you
think so.
defined it. Well, exactly, so, but do we want to go forward with the narrower bylaw that we have in front of us, whether it's amplified music or amplified sound or electronic devices? Do we want to pull it back and consider a much larger bylaw, which would be noise in general, which is not something that we have and has come up occasionally? So you see why zoning is so much fun.
I was in Weymouth probably 30 years ago, watching a football game on Sunday, and then houses where, you know, you could fit a car between the two houses. The guy next door ripped up with the chainsaw. People called, the police came, shut off the chainsaw.
Yeah, and there are some communities that have that. All right, Bill, Alex, Cheryl.
Are we buying a noise meter to be able to read 10 decibels over ambient noise?
I think the whole point was that we were not having to buy a noise meter.
That's the
Alex?
beauty of it. They have to hire the meter.
I think
That is
Alex's
the
writing
beauty of
put the
this.
burden upon the person making
All
said
you do is
noise.
they call up the police. If you can't hear each other speak on
Shut
the
it
lot
off.
line, then the policeman goes and says, tone it down.
And
And this is, you know, it doesn't solve the world's problems,
Right.
but it's a start. And I think that making a start on this one, where we said to the Curry people, we'll do something. And you said, we've done nothing.
You did say that, actually, come to think of it. You know what? If you want to change it back to amplified music, we'll put it forward as a
Put it-
general bylaw
just
and
send it
see what happens with
Send
it.
it
I'm,
along.
I'm,
We're going to change the top from amplified sound to amplified music?
we're changing it back to amplified music, yes. Because all of the language inside still refers to amplified music. Yeah, exactly. Any,
My question really
Yes.
Was about this. We don't have any regulation in Milton, do we, on when construction hours
I
or leaf blowing?
do
or
not
any
believe
of
so.
that?
There's a state regulation, which I was just reading today. After having read the stuff on Thayer, I said, I should go check out 310 CMR 7 point.
So on a
One,
there's no
0.
regulation on a construction site to say that somebody can't be out there at 7 a.m. doing work?
Only the state regulation.
And it's just-
And it is 7 a.m.
Milton may not, but towns do have regulations.
Well, I know some towns do, yeah. I
Yeah,
guess
but
I
Milton
was
does
wondering
not. That is
whether
correct.
that was something that anybody has.
I looked
Heard about.
at the whole noise situation before I decided to address amplified music.
I suspected you had, and that's why you narrowed it down somewhat.
And, you know, it's certain that we can discuss at our strategy session whether or not this is something to put high on the,
Well, that's it. If you bring it
Absolutely.
back to make it more inclusive for longer, it's not going to make it till 2017.
It probably won't make it into the top three.
Well, we can put I mean, we could put it forward as amplified music and then continue talk about noise. There's nothing that precludes us from doing that, so.
So is this
Probably
specifically, so is this is really specifically to address Kirby? When you get right down to it?
Loudspeakers in general. I mean, there is a question, does it
Loudspeakers in general,
apply to
that's
the
fine,
municipality?
so that's
Yeah.
fine, I agree.
So-
It'll apply to house parties. If your next door neighbor is
Right.
blasting the music and you can't hear yourself think or can't
What
hear the
might
other
we
person
mean
talk.
blasting music?
Well, see, Brian, they're going to come after you now. So, Tim,
Is there a difference between a zoning bylaw and a general bylaw in terms of notice? Because this was not part of the public hearing, so general bylaw, you can just,
Anything goes.
okay.
the warrant committee, for a zoning bylaw, the planning board is required to hold the public hearing. For all others, it goes through the warrant committee, through their regular processes.
Gotcha.
So,
I was getting a little nervous, but
yeah.
this is good.
So when it comes up to town meeting, did you publicly notice this? We'll say, well, you know, Tim. So, all right, do we have a motion on this?
I'm sorry, so we're putting this forward to warrant committee? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, we're putting it forward as a recommendation. We'll see what happens with it.
And someone can mention to the town administrator, you know, if the selectmen should do this, have them
Right.
okay it.
Yeah, well, I'm meeting with I believe I'm meeting with the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday. I will ask them anyway, so.
That'd be great.
Do I have a second on the so moved? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Against? Against, okay. So,
Is it the hour of the night or something?
one more item on the
Understand, it's a weird
agenda.
one for me.
711, where'd it go? Randolph Avenue, A&R, yes. 2 items on the agenda, what did I check off? Oh, Coulter, yes, I'm sorry. 2 items on the agenda. Amendment to special permit for Coulter Landscaping and A&R for 711 Randolph Avenue. Are you here for Randolph Avenue as well? If not, I'm going to take Coulter first. Come on up. Oh, you're here.
He's here, he can go.
Come on up.
711 Randolph Ave. 711 Randolph Ave is the,
Sorry, I saw you talking. I was thinking maybe you were both here for the same one. My apologies. All right.
going on, what, since November?
All right, so, Bill?
711 Randolph Ave is the 1 acre lot that is beside the proposed 40B on Randolph Ave. The issue came up that our zoning map that we have been proclaiming as our zoning map isn't the one that was ever approved by town meeting.
Right.
And after much discussion with town council, it
Yes, you do.
we found other mistakes within our zoning map. The zoning map was approved in 1997. The map that everybody looks at was 2002. In 2002, the engineers just drew a map and stuck on there saying, this is our zoning map, and that's what everybody has been using. The issue is, it was done in CAD. The parcel data that's underneath it could not be justified in what the CAD did, but I was able to find the original zoning map that we should have been using for a control, but our draftspeople wrote on the control plan and kept adding in the changes to the zoning. So it still shows that what we had over time was correct, but it shows that that 2002 plan is wrong. In order to go back and come up with a corrected zoning map, we have to go through the process of having these kind of public hearings. We have to go back and we have to go and find and make mention of all of there are literally dots in the middle of our plan where the data doesn't match up with what's there. Bottom line is, we have to sign 711 as Residence C, because that's what that plan shows. You have to sign off, not for the town, but for the homeowner.
And I believe you have spoken to town council about
Yes.
this, that's correct? So this is his determination that we need to sign
You
this.
have to sign it,
All right.
hold your nose and sign it.
Any questions from board members?
Who owns parcel A and who owns, is that a different owner than the person who owns lot B?
Same owner.
So,
You sign it to say that this is Zone C.
Yes.
So that is a lot.
You're the town planner, why don't you sign it?
I
Well,
can't do it
but we can
without your
authorize
permission.
him to sign it.
Okay.
well, I'm not, I mean, Lot B is clearly not a buildable lot, but there's no real reason why it should be created if the owner of Lot B is the same as the owner of parcel A. What's the reason for that? I mean, all the lots are supposed to have frontage on the plan, and this one doesn't. You do say not a buildable lot.
And it
but-
says it's to be combined with parcel A.
So what is the
Well, I
significance
mean,
of the
why
zoning?
should it, why isn't it already combined? Why don't you combine it by just taking Lot B out and making it part of,
Parcel A.
Because Lot A has got a house on it.
Lot A has a house on it, and and the current lot is Lot A and B, right?
You should probably state your name for the record.
Jim
since
DeSalle from DeSalle Burke and Associates.
Thanks, just to get it on the tape.
Okay, and Lot B is to be combined with parcel A to form a single parcel containing 7 point. And parcel A has, it's in, where is parcel A? Is it all in the C zone? It's in the B zone, isn't it?
A zone.
It's an A, and
Okay.
there's a little sliver in it.
But doesn't parcel A need 150 feet of frontage?
But it's now
It does.
C.
No, it's not C.
It's got residence C, that line there.
This is parcel A, which is A.
Confusion between
Oh, I'm
Lot
looking
A
at
and
Lot A, I'm
parcel
sorry,
A.
I'm looking at Lot A,
And
not
so
parcel A, my
you're
apologies.
in- If you don't build your Meg Lane, I mean, this is the whole reason for Meg Lane, to get frontage for the two houses they wanted to build there.
Lot A, you only need 75 feet of frontage.
What about parcel A? You're doing the same thing I did.
150 feet because it's in an A zone.
So what you're saying is without Meg Lane, parcel A is
Without
unbuildable.
building, parcel A is an unbuildable lot.
Yes, we are adding to it.
So you're going to say parcel A not a buildable lot, right?
The way you've marked Lot B, not a
Because it's being
buildable lot.
combined.
Even if you combine it, you don't have any
Right,
frontage.
but that's what you're saying, because you are combining it, it should say that on,
No, because
Like-
parcel A by itself is not a buildable lot. because it
understood,
doesn't-
but it doesn't say that, is what, I
Right,
think
it
is your
doesn't
point,
say
right?
that parcel A is not a buildable lot.
Right.
But we're only dealing with this lot.
Not if you add it to parcel
No,
A.
it's the same owner.
But you're saying right here that it, number 4 in the title block under general notes, Lot B is to be combined with
yep.
parcel A to form a single parcel containing 7.89 acres.
Right.
So it
and
is-
It, by implication,
Yeah, we're
you
not
say
going
it's
to put a record plan
buildable.
in.
Right.
So you're gonna have to put not a buildable lot on,
Parcel A.
parcel
Parcel
A.
A.
It's true.
It's a separate lot.
You
But
can
you're
say
combining it
whatever
with Lot
you
B.
want to, but it's a
We're making it
lot.
more non-conforming
It's-
by
it's
adding
already
land to it?
non-conforming, but you're making it more because you're adding land to it.
Right, it's an even more non-conforming lot.
How is that more
after what you
non-conforming
do.
by adding
It's
land?
not, it's not conforming now.
You've got no
But you're
frontage.
making it more non-conforming by adding more land to it.
You're not addressing the
bigger
current
it is, the more
nonconformity.
non-conforming it is.
I didn't,
All right, well, you take that to your people and say that we've,
So
I-
are you making a motion to approve it subject to not a buildable lot being
Right,
added to
right,
parcel A
exactly.
and allowing to Bill to sign off on it?
yeah, I move that Mr. Clark be authorized to endorse this plan as not requiring subdivision approval, so long as parcel A is clearly delineated. Parcel A, Bill,
You
not
got it right here.
Lot B. Parcel A is clearly delineated as not a buildable lot.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All right, do I have any discussion on that?
Let's see how Brian does on this one.
I'm fine on this one.
Okay, seeing no discussion, all those
He's
in
already got his hand
favor?
up also.
All right, excellent. Now, we have one last
Get that?
thing. Bill, you'll take care of that?
Got it.
Ned,
We have to have a long.
thank you for the reminder that was something
Huh?
else
We have
here.
to have a long meeting.
We have a,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for allowing me to remind you.
I went to the doctor for today, and what
We have
she
a,
gave me was not
just-
kicking it at all.
this is not a public
Some
hearing, by the way. This is a request on an amendment, guys, for the special permit for Coulter Landscaping. Ned, would you like to explain why you're here?
Yeah, so Ned Corcoran, I'm here on behalf of Tom Coulter. If you recall, in 2013, you granted special permit and site plan approval for landscaping greenhouse residential development in accordance with the bylaw that was passed in 2012. I have copies of site plans. If you recall, on the property next door where the issue arose has been sold, and new owner. And the new owner and Mr. Coulter have a very nice relationship. And the property boundary, the property boundary along the westerly side, the common boundary, had a fence that went from the southwesterly corner by the back of the barn to about a third of the way up towards Atherton Street. And from there, it was infilled with a not very healthy hemlock green barrier. The new owner of the abutting property, James Kingston, and Mr. Coulter have agreed on a modification to that, and what they've agreed on is a fence that would be 7.5 feet tall, that would run the entire length of the property. It would look like that. It would be 6 foot of cedar plank with 18 inches of lattice on top. It would run essentially the entire length of the property, and then the hemlocks and other that are healthy enough to be transplanted onto the Kingston property and infilled with other hemlocks. It is a minor modification to the site plan. It improves conditions between the two properties. They are anxious to install a fence and plant the arborvitaes, and so I would ask the board to approve this as a minor modification. I have a form of modification for the board to sign if it so determines that would be appropriate.
Brian?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, this is just along the western.
Just along the westerly side. There's no other change to the site plan that was previously approved as part of the earlier special permit.
Okay, Charles?
To be clear, so that lighting layout is already there?
It's already there. And a certificate of occupancy, the appeal, there was an appeal that had been filed by the prior abutter. That appeal has been dismissed. There is a certificate of occupancy that was recently issued by Mr. Prondak with respect to all of the requirements of the site plan as then voted. All of the lighting is at levels that are required. It's possible that we may be back with a more formal amendment to address some minor changes to the site plan, but those, because they would potentially increase impacts, I think would require a public hearing, public notice, because this is a reduction in impact. It's a minor modification to what was previously voted. I think the board has the authority to grant this as a minor modification without public hearing, and I think the board has done that, at least in a couple of matters that I've had recently, particularly at 50 Elliott Street.
Questions? Alex?
I want to do a motion.
Okay.
I want to move to authorize the construction of a fence as shown in the illustration along the Kingston-Coulter common border with relocated hemlocks and arborvitaes as shown on the plan of land for 919 Blue Hill Avenue, revision September 9th, 2015. To be evidenced by a writing from you, Tim, setting forth these conditions and getting the concurrence of James Kingston. That's the motion.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second. Oh, I wanted Alex to get it from me this time.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
you.
unanimous?
We had expected a letter, but we hadn't received it from the abutter.
Okay, if you get it, please forward it to, or when you get it, I should say, please forward it to Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board members, that clears off our agenda for tonight. So our next meeting is going to be the presentation that Tim referenced earlier, Thayer, and then a discussion of zoning and process after Thayer. So, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor? All right, thank you all very much.